In this week's Tableau Tip Tuesday, I'm going to take you through 5 use cases for strip plots. Now sometimes you hear these called strip plots or barcode charts. Whatever they are, they're really good for showing concentrations or frequency of data points across time. Now the reason I'm showing these is because back in Makeover Monday last week, I created a strip plot at the bottom of my visualization down here to show the yearly temperatures. And I thought I'd show you how I created that, but also walk you through other use cases for them. So let's start by going to a new sheet, and I'm going to connect to my global warming data source. Now the easiest way to build these is with your date dimension. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and drag date to the columns and pick my year. And I could just leave it there. And if I take my, let's go ahead and take my median and put that on color, you'll see I just basically get this really, really long plot. Now I could change this to a Gantt bar, make my columns continuous, my year dimension continuous, and there we go. We have a strip plot. Very, very simple. So in this case, what I would probably do is fix my axis to be just one more year than the range that is in the view. That'll kind of fill the space up better. And I'd also probably actually go ahead and remove my title. So this right now is showing us the global temperature by year for across the globe. So another thing I could do then is maybe I want to expand on this, and I might want to look at it by year and month. So I can right click and drag date to the rows and choose my month. And now you can see by month which ones are getting warmer throughout through the years from 1850 to 2015. So let's call this one global warming. So pretty simple use case there. Now what might be another example here? So let's go to a new sheet. And this time I'm going to look at the frequency of fires in Greater Manchester in the UK. So in this case, again, you want to look for a date and time dimension. So I don't have, it looks like I have a date field. So let's go ahead and drag that into the columns. And let's start by looking at just our continuous years. Okay, now that's not particularly helpful because I only have 2 points. Okay, so maybe let's just go ahead and start drilling in a little bit and see maybe we can get a little more frequency. Okay, so we have weeks. And I could then look at, maybe I want to look at just the total number of fatalities or injuries or rescues, or maybe I just want to look at the number of fires. So I'll just do number of records. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to a Gantt bar. Oops, I need to change something here. What did I mess up? So let me just go ahead and change this to, let me move my number of records to the rows. And there we go. Okay, so I messed that up. Let me go ahead and change this to discrete. And move this back to, okay, so I'm messing something up here. So this is when you mess up, you just go ahead and hit the clear sheet and you start over. So I'm going to go ahead and drag my date field to the rows. And maybe let's look at it by, let's say we want to look at it by hour of the day. And we want to look at it by weekday. Okay, so we're comparing weekdays by the hour of the day. I can go ahead and change my mark type to a Gantt bar. And if I make this continuous, let's see what happens here. Okay, so that looks okay. And maybe now I want to just color this by the number of records. So I think that was the mistake I made last time, as I made it, I put number of records on the view and on the rows instead. So in this case, I'll go ahead and change my axis from 0 to 24 or to 23 hours. And now we can see the frequency of fires within the Manchester Fire Department. And maybe a good color scale here would be red to blue reversed. Red meaning more fires. So we can see that there tend to be more fires between about 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Pretty much every day. It doesn't look like there's any more for the weekends or anything like that on first glance. Okay, so maybe we could take that a step farther, and let's say that we want to look at, let's say we want to look at it by borough within Manchester. And we want to look at, let's say, let's just look across all time. So let's just go ahead and make it discrete. And this time we could say number, maybe we want to color it by the number of fatalities. Where's fatalities? Okay, there we go. Put that on color. Let's go ahead and make this again red to blue and reverse it. Sorry, didn't mean to step it. Okay, and maybe that looks like it's too granular, so let's go ahead and change it to day. And we can see it looks like there's a couple of days where there's fires. Again, maybe too high level of an aggregation. So let's look at week number. And there we go. So now we can see that there are, let's change it to just a simple red palette. Where's my red palette? Area red. Let's choose that and unreverse it. Okay, that helps us a little bit better there. So now we could see that the concentration of, there's particular days. So in Manchester, the week of August 27th had the most fatalities, something like that. Or we could simply swap it out for maybe just the number of primary fires, something like that. And again, probably change my color palette to red. Hit OK. And you can see the borough of Manchester has the most fires. In this case, maybe we'd want to keep only that borough. And then let's see how we can break this down, maybe by locality or something like that. Okay, so that only has north and central, so that's not a very good example. So let's look at maybe something like LSOA. Okay, so I'm pulling up pretty bad examples here. So let me pick a different, let's pick Bolton, for example. Okay. And we can see that the fires in Bolton, there tended to be more on the 10th. Okay, so we could also then maybe break it down by the fire classification. Oops. So you can kind of play with lots of different dimensions and measures. See, most of them are primary fires. Maybe you want to look at the ignition source and different things like that. So this gives you a nice strip plot example. So we can call this one, let's call this one fires in Bolton. Okay, and maybe the next example we want to go through here is we could look at, let's see how we would maybe use this with Superstore sales. So let's switch over to Superstore sales, and let's go ahead and let's look at how about we look at the order frequency by product subcategory. So I'm going to take product subcategory and put that in the rows. And then let's go ahead and right click and drag order date to the columns. And let's say let's start by just looking at it by week. And when this immediate view here just tells us every time that you've placed an order. You could look at it by maybe weekday instead. And let's go ahead and maybe take profit and put that on the color. That gives us let's switch it to a Gantt bar and make this continuous. Okay, so it works better when your column item is continuous. That's not particularly great, so let's maybe look at it by day. And you can see you can drill down to lots of different levels of detail to see if there's any patterns or anything like that. So this might be, this is simply telling us the profit, or we could look at maybe just the value of sales instead, if you want to do something like that. Maybe color code this a little bit differently, maybe red, maybe let's do a blue to green. Okay, and again, a little bit hard to see, maybe make it fit the entire view. It's hard to see. It looks like there's a big seller in here somewhere. But again, the idea is it looks like computer peripherals selling pretty much every week. Bookcases look like there's lots of gaps. It's not selling that great. So it's just a really quick glance at frequency. So let's call this sales by subcategory. All right, another Superstore sales example might be to look at, let's drag week to the, let's go ahead and put week in the columns again. And let's look at maybe product name. We'll go ahead and add all members, that's fine. And this shows you when each product was ordered. And maybe let's drill down to just a specific product category. Let's maybe look at just technology products. Okay, or better yet, let's look at furniture. Okay, so these are all of our furniture products and when they sell, and you can maybe create a calculation for profit ratio. So I'll call this profit ratio, and it's going to be my sum of my profit divided by the sum of sales. And I can go ahead and drag that to color. And now you can see which products are profitable and which ones are not. Maybe you want to swap this out for a different dimension, maybe something like state. And you want to see which states, there's lots of red with furniture, which isn't good. So it looks like there's a lot of unprofitable products within furniture. If anybody knows this data set, then you probably know it's tables in the east is typically the problem. So anyway, this is a nice little frequency table of, let's say, profit ratio by state. Okay. And the last example I want to walk through is actually inspired by this article that I read on a barcode chart it says making sense of government data without looking at the numbers. So in this particular data set, it's called the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation, particularly focused on the Fife Council in Scotland. Now, I don't know a lot about Scotland other than I've been there, but this article is really good. It shows you how to get the data. They build this they call it a barcode chart that by local authority. So let's go ahead and start by building this exact same view. So to do that, I'm going to go to a new sheet, and I'm going to connect to an Excel file that I've already gone ahead and pre-downloaded. I'm going to call it the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation. And let me just go ahead and extract this and go to our new sheet. All right, hit save. And this just may turn out to be a great future Makeover Monday project. Okay, so in this case, let's flip back over. Okay, so it looks like they have local authority going down the left-hand side. So let's put local authority name in the rows. And what they're using in this case is they're using most deprived to least deprived. So each bar represents a single data zone. Okay, so I could take data zone and put that on detail. And you'll see we just get a bunch of blocks. I'm going to go ahead and turn that into a Gantt bar. And then, actually, no, let's just leave it alone for now. And then they have a bunch of different measures for all of these metrics. So the first one is the overall rank. So let's just take the overall rank and put that on the columns. And we could probably make this, whether we make it an average or not doesn't matter. And now I'll change it to a Gantt bar. And you can easily see how Glasgow is the most. So their color of choice is black, so I'll go ahead and switch it. Maybe that's a little bit bold. Maybe slightly lighter shade. So you see we've got basically built the same example that they have. So what I would probably do in this case is change my axis to say something like, so you notice theirs, it says most deprived to least deprived. So I'll say most deprived, and then put a bunch of spaces in, maybe something like this, and then least deprived. I'll probably go back and make sure that my spacing is the same. I get kind of funny about that. So Control C, go in here, Control V, and then I'll probably go ahead and turn off my tick marks. Okay, so there you go. So now you have your most deprived to least deprived states, or not to states or local authorities. I'd probably go ahead and hide the field labels for my local authorities. So now we have something that's very, very similar to theirs. Now probably it makes sense to maybe put in some more spaces here and try to spread it out a little bit more. You get the idea. Okay, so what I would probably do in this case is go ahead and sort this bar chart in ascending order by the overall rank. Now what this is going to do is it's going to, I want it in ascending order because the lower the ranking, the worse the conditions. So actually, no, sorry, I think I have that backwards. So we want to do it by the average ranking, not the overall ranking. So, oops, let's see here. So let's sort this again, and let's change this to the average. Okay, there we go. So now you can see Glasgow has the overall lowest average rating, followed by West Dunbartonshire, Inverclyde, sorry, and then North Lanarkshire. No idea where these places are, but you see we're able to really quickly reproduce this same bar chart. So that's a really, really neat example of a way to show this is the deprivation index. So what I'd probably do from here is actually, I see that they have lots of different measures for the deprivation scales. So maybe I would probably go ahead and create a new parameter that allows the user to decide what to show. So I'm going to say choose a ranking, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a string. And I'm going to just start entering some of these values. So I'll just start by doing education, and then employment, geographic access, health, housing, income, number of employed deprived people. So, so this one we should probably call employment domain. No, that's not a ranking. So actually we probably can just leave this one alone. That can probably just be the employment rank. And if I continue down, we have the crime. And then lastly, we have the overall. Okay, so I'd probably reorder these, make them alphabetical. So I'm going to drag this one. I'm going to put overall first just because I think that's the good one to start with. And then crime, education, employment. Okay, so the rest of those look like they are in alphabetical order. Hit OK. And now I could show this parameter. And I'll default it to overall for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a calculated field to use that parameter. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this ranking. And for this case, I'm going to go ahead and hide that, move this over a little bit so I can see. And I'm going to just do a simple case statement. I'm going to say case, choose a ranking. And then it's just a matter of typing in the options that I entered in there. So when overall, then I want to do my overall rank. When I think I put education next, then I want to do my education rank. Oops. Okay. When I do employment, sorry, pardon my typos, then employment domain rank. When geographic access, then geographic access domain rank. When health, and you have to make sure you type them exactly right, otherwise the parameter won't pick them up. Health domain rank. When, let's see, the next one was housing, then housing domain rank. When income, then income domain rank. And when I already did overall, and then the last one is crime, then crime rank. And okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if I look here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Excellent. Okay, so now I have a field called ranking. I can put that in my columns. And now I want to sort this by the average of the ranking. Average, hit OK. And now I can quickly cycle through my my rankings, and you can see for most of them, so geographic access, you see that finally Glasgow moves down to the bottom. So good geographic access there. Health, Glasgow is the worst. Housing, Glasgow is the worst. Income, Glasgow is the worst. And I don't know a lot about Glasgow, but this isn't making me feel like I'd probably want to live there. Now, this could be based on because there's simply more people that live there. But either way, it does not set a good story. Okay, so I think that's about it for this week. I believe I've gone through all of the use cases I wanted to. In the example on this website, you can see in this report, they go ahead and take Fife and drill into it a little bit more. So if we wanted to do that, so I'll call this deprivation index. If you'd wanted to do that, we could duplicate the sheet. Choose, where is Fife? Fife is in here somewhere. Keep only. And what I would probably do here is, I believe the best thing for me to use next is probably this nearest settlement. I think that's as close as I'm going to get. It looks like they may have a slightly different information. But now I'd want to go ahead and sort this in by the average ranking. Okay, and now we can see something sort of similar. I don't have the same cities because I just don't know enough about this area. And what I would probably do here is turn on my column grand totals. And now this gives me Fife overall. So I could format this grand total and call this one Fife. So you notice here, so we can hit OK. And then I would probably go ahead and I need to fix this again. So I'm going to call this, how did they rank this over here? So most deprived to least deprived, most deprived. And then least deprived. Okay, so I'm going to copy that, turn off my tick marks. All right, and then go ahead and fix that over here as well. So do none. All right, so there we go. So this is, I'll just call this Fife, or digging into Fife. So you could easily swap this out for other local areas, but in this case we want to look at just Fife. So this is nice because it gives you kind of the overall. We could move our totals to the top if you want. So that gives you Fife and then the breakdown, which is kind of a nice way to look at it. In their example, they put Fife at the bottom, but that's all right. Either way, it's just fine. Actually, one other thing I would probably do here is go ahead and add in a reference band for the table, because I want to know where my 20th percentile is. So I'm going to go to my distribution, pick percentile, enter a value, 20. I'm going to untick the recalculate and hit OK. And it looks like I messed something up here, so let me edit this. And I don't want to turn off my computation. And my fill, I want to do fill below. There we go. Okay, so I'd probably want to do that over here as well. So add a reference line. I want to do a distribution, percentiles 20, fill below. Don't show the label and turn off my recalc. Okay, so now this is nice because it shows you sort of where the worst 20% are. So you'll notice they did that over here as well. So I hope you found this helpful. Again, some great use cases there for strip plots, and basically they show you frequencies, and I hope you learned something today. Have a great week.